I believe the most powerful part of showing comps to a seller or a buyer, especially a seller at a kitchen table, to give them perspective, is a comp that follows, is the following. And that is a failed listing. Not the actives, not the pendings, not even the solds. There's something to be said about like the evening news. It's always bad news. Bad news actually triggers emotions. And in the last 2 minutes of the newscast, they show, boy saves dog, that kind of a story. And they'll tell a little positive. But people are drawn in and moved more emotionally. I hate to say it, but when there's bad news involved, they really pay attention, especially when it is affecting them. So a way to help sellers get perspective, we're going to look really for failed listings, expired, withdrawns, canceled, whatever your MLS has called. The agent had it and now they don't. Now obviously some sellers just take their house off the market for the holidays, whatever, but what we do know is the agent might not have been fired, but they didn't sell it. The goal is always to sell our listings in less than, how many days? How many days would you say? I'd say 30 days. But sell everything in less than 30 days. No matter what the economy, no matter what the marketplace is like, no matter what the seller is. Again, there's no tough economies, there's only tough sellers and agents that cannot communicate the right price to people. Or if you don't get the right price, to move to that price in a short period of time. 60 days is fine, but we're setting a goal. Sell everything we take in less than 30 days. So, what is it why houses don't sell? Is it the bad marketing plans or a failed pricing strategy? Have you ever lost a listing? Ever? Know anybody in your office that ever lost a listing? Would you say definitely it was the failed marketing plan? Yep, that's what it was. And because we know it's not. It's the pricing and the failure to communicate to the client that's resistant to accept the truth. So the objective of the interview, of course, is to move them emotionally. You got about an hour to do this. And in that hour, we're going to focus on, again, different statuses of properties. But what I want you to look for is the failed properties with other brands with high days in the market. You accomplish a few things here. You get to eliminate your competitor nicely, because after all, they're the ones who had the listing that didn't sell. Even though the seller didn't terminate it and fire the agent, nothing bad happened, nobody was mad, they still failed in the time frame. And seller, I wonder what you think of this MLS printout. Why do you think this house didn't? The seller's reading the MLS printout, right? Looking for the features that you pre-highlighted. You want their eye to go to those things. And what's even better about a failed property, if you can find a failed with what I call our Bryan comps. We talked about this on a different video. A Bryan comp means the property had 3 conditions similar to the subject property. The conditions are, they're bought in the same radius as the subject, the same year as the subject, meaning if the seller bought in 2007, that the other comp also was purchased in 2007 in the same area, and the A would be for about the same amount. Same year, same radius, same amount. The key to this property, it re-entered the marketplace. Whether it's a sold, a Bryan comp could be a sold, it could be an active, it could be a failed listing. If we find a property that didn't sell with your competitor, we ask the seller the questions about the features, and then show the seller that they bought around the same date, same area, same value, and they were asking -1% per year, and they still didn't sell, and the property ends up being superior, meaning it was larger square footage, maybe extra features you could see in the remarks of the other property, and they still didn't fail. That's one of the things that gives sellers a tremendous perspective on what they can't do. Again, most listing presentations, pricing, go into, here's what you can do. It's much more convincing to get both parties' input on this and moving them emotionally if we show them what you can't do. And the failed listings really serve that. So do the active listings that aren't selling. It shows a seller what you can't do in the marketplace. I'm not saying you can't do it. Apparently the data is saying, it's the market that's saying. I have no opinion here. At the end, I'll express my opinion where I think the property should be. But I wanted to ask you if this property looks superior or inferior to your property. And again, you have these in the kitchen table. A lot of times one of the parties will kind of grab it and pull it toward them, which also tells you who's in control, who's making the decision. The other party might not even get to see the paperwork because this one seller pulls it toward them, and the other one just sits there idle. Now you know this person's opinion, we don't want them to decide the price because they're not even engaged in the presentation because this one became dominant. There's so much that can be learned at the kitchen table interview about who's in charge, what their motivation is per person, their objectivity per person, their readiness to change, and what their expectations are you, if we're listening. But the way we listen is we ask key questions, get the seller to share their opinion, and they're always happy to share their opinion if asked the right question in the right order. So again, why are listings not selling? Generally, it's not the marketing plan. They are statistically trying to outperform the market. Meaning they're asking too much. Whether you use price per square foot or compounding appreciation to say that you can't get that appreciation per year, not in this market, not with those features, and people are voting with their feet and they're passing on the property. Using these phrases really gives the seller perspective, especially when you're talking about other properties that failed. Another brand, a national brand, local, independent company, whatever it is, ask the seller, why do you think it didn't sell? And their words will convict themselves, which is what a lot of therapy is. Our own words we learn from. We just got to get them triggered with the seller. Okay, thanks for watching.